I basically get to have some fantastic conversations with some really great people, and you guys have a choice to make. You can either listen in or you can participate. And really this came out of a vision from finding myself in coffee shops with what I found to be pretty remarkable folks, and thinking, gosh, wouldn't it be valuable if we could scale these conversations and more people could participate? And today's conversation is really fortuitous and providential, I think, how it came to be. In fact, it actually is a reflection of the photo community. Last Christmas, there was, I've been a fan of John Jantsch for a long time with his book Duct Tape Marketing and Referral Engine. We'll talk more about those later. But I was reading his top 10 business books last fall, and unfortunately my book did not make his top 10 list. But I had a friend, a photographer out in the East Coast, who put in his comments section, hey, you should check out Dane Sanders' new business plan book. And John was gracious enough to comment back and say, oh, I'll check it out. I have a friend who's a photographer. And of course we started, I jumped on that and said, hey, I'd love to send your friend my book. And turned out his friend was his daughter, and his daughter ended up signing up for my workshop this fall out in Chicago. But it really just kind of launched a conversation. And John was gracious enough to join us in the conversation today at Fast Track. So I want to welcome right now John Jantsch. Thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure, Dane. That was a great intro. That was a very unique intro. Usually people go on this list of like all these ridiculous accomplishments, and I love that intro a lot better.
Well, there is a lot to talk about in that category, but I think the reality is, at least for my listeners, is they're just, number one, they're excited that you take the time to be on the show, and number two, we're kind of in a season and in an economy, and I know you get this given all the conversations you're in, where accolades and initials after your name and accomplishments that are historic don't really mean very much when small business owners are trying to feed their kids and stay afloat and keep rolling. And the purpose of this conversation is to really, as briefly as we can pull off, try to help these small business owners many of them happen to be photographers, just move their business a little further this week. And if they get 1 or 2 or 3 nuggets out of this, that's a home run in my mind, especially if they get to engage with you. So my invitation is for us to be as just candid as like you and I have in coffee, and I'm just going to engage it like a dialogue, and I hope as you guys are listening in that you guys decide to do the same. So I see a bunch of guys in the chat room already. And John, I just wanted to start off. There's 2 books I want to talk about, but really I want to start with Duct Tape because this is the one that got my attention in the first place. Duct Tape Marketing, the reason I love it, obviously it's so clever. No one can afford marketing, but everyone can afford duct tape. And when I saw this, I thought, okay, this is my kind of marketing. And in it, I noticed that you spend a lot of time talking about systems and developing a kind of methodical approach to solving marketing problems and kind of approaching it day in, day out. And I'm wondering if you could, I guess, 2 things. One, talk a little bit about what you got to the point of writing this book. And I know it's historic. You wrote this book a while ago now. But if you could give people some context for your story. And then 2, talk a little bit about the importance of building a system when it comes to a marketing plan.
Yeah, well, actually, to go all the way back a ways very briefly, I own my own marketing consulting firm for over 25 years now, and really, at some point, 10 years in, found that I really enjoyed working with small business owners much more than really anything else. I often tell people I think there are things both parts gratifying and terrifying equally when you're doing work and trying to produce results for the same person that's actually writing the check for you to do that. But I quickly found out that working with small business owners, and if any of you that have tried to do that, can be tough. I mean, at least in the traditional marketing consulting way. They have the same needs and challenges, but don't have the same budgets and resources. And so the genesis of Duct Tape Marketing really is and was my determination to try to create and document an approach, a systematic approach to small business marketing that probably the first consideration was that would make me much more efficient as a consultant, something that I could go in and say, look, I know you think you need this or you think you need that, but rather than me going back and writing a proposal to try to address what you think you need, I believe there actually is a systematic approach to marketing, and we're going to start with point A and we're going to go to point Z. Here's how we're going to proceed. Here are the results you can expect, and by the way, here's what it's going to cost. And so in a lot of ways, and a lot of, I think, innovations probably have come about in this manner for people over the years. A lot of ways, I was just trying to solve my own problem with this, and so, but I quickly found out that idea of a packaged system and packaged approach and maybe even a set price, almost turning this strange service into a product, really resonated with small business owners because they were so used to just buying air and buying an idea. And so for somebody to come in and say, by the way, here's the methodology that we're going to follow, I think was actually rather refreshing. And quite frankly, 10 years later, I think that idea, that audacious idea that I sort of stumbled upon has grown even larger. A lot of people want to know, the idea behind the name, and it's certainly, I can tell you a long, really boring story about it, but it really just was my thought that well, first off, if I wanted to create this brand that was not John's great marketing system and was something that I could brand and package, I felt like I had to give it a product-like name, and for me, because I'd owned my own small business, I really was the ideal or target client. To me, that idea of simple, effective, affordable, doesn't always have to be pretty, it just has to work, is probably the metaphor that really hit home with small business owners.
I'm sure you get asked this question every day, but how often do people say they wish you had done the cover in duct tape itself?
Well, it's funny. The publisher actually came up with 4 or 5 cover concepts, and one of them was as though you had just taken strips of duct tape and created your own little book cover with it.
Right.
But for whatever reason, that one got shot down. Ironically, I'm sure that a lot of the folks on here today are familiar with Dan and Chip Heath's book, Made to Stick.
Sure.
Very popular book, and it came out almost exactly the same time, I think in the spring of 2007. And it had a big strip of duct tape on it as well, and I actually had them on my podcast right around that time, and we kind of joked about it being the year of duct tape, on books. And actually, duct tape, for what it's worth, I've completely revised duct tape marketing. Certainly, fundamentally, it's the same, but a lot of things have changed over the last couple of years, obviously, and so the publisher wanted me to update it. It's this fall, I think, sometime in September, it's going to be reissued, and it's it's a true update. I think I turned in 15,000 new words, and for any writers out there, they realize that's about a third of the book.
Yeah, it's interesting. My little stab at a book that I self-published, the first one was the Fast Track book, and then redid it again for Random last year, and I thought I was going to have to just kind of scribble on a couple things and hand it in, and turns out that isn't what they were thinking. So I could totally relate to what a rewrite looks like.
I want to. When I wrote the first edition of Duct Tape Marketing, it was really. I had been blogging for a few years, but the whole idea of content and blogging and all of social media that we now just accept as a part of life and a part of business was really just getting started. So obviously, I had to add all of that in.
Well, it makes sense. In fact, I'd love to talk a little bit about that today, because even as you're described, I know for my listeners, as soon as you said the word marketing and cost, that people would actually spend intentional money in that direction. There's this kind of mixed sense of that makes sense, but this kind of knee-jerk twitch, I don't want to spend money, because indeed people feel like they don't know what they're buying. It's that old adage of once you start paying for marketing or advertising, you don't know if any of it works, but you have to keep spending to keep rolling. Talk a little bit about what you mean when you say methodically buying a package of marketing that would roll out over time.
Well, we just had we have, and we use, and I have a whole network of consultants around the world now that license my materials and my programs, and we have a very set path, and it's if people want to go download it, it's free on my website called The 7 Steps to Small Business Marketing Success, and that really gives you the overview of our path. And it is simply this, that strategy needs to come before tactics. And that's, believe it or not, that's revolutionary in marketing, because not enough people are talking about it. And that's the whole idea about this idea of a system. I mean, small business owners kind of fall prey to what I call the idea of the week. They go to a conference, they jump on a call like this, they read a book, and they think, oh, now this, Twitter is my marketing. And so what we really do is step back and say, we need to clearly identify who and what makes an ideal client for your business, and I guarantee you it's much narrower than you're thinking right now, and we need to find a way to differentiate your business in a way that's meaningful to that ideal market, and in a way that is truly different. Not we provide good service, because everyone claims that.
Sure.
So in some way that really does allow you to stand out and say, here's how we're different from every other business that says they do what you do. I'll use the fact that there are many photographers on this call. I'm quite certain that there are many photographers. If I'm a bride and I'm talking to 3 photographers, I'm certain that they all claim to take really good, creative, fun pictures. And they all claim to be able to deliver them in a certain way and package them in a certain way. So those have become expectations that certainly have to be there, have to be in place. But you have to go beyond that and find, what are the little things that make working with you valuable. And so that's when we talk about a marketing strategy. We talk about really clearly finding and nailing and getting business owners to commit to that marketing strategy before we really surround it with any tactics, because I drive a lot of people crazy when I make this comment, but if you get a good marketing strategy down, you can almost surround it with any set of tactics, that are logical, proven tactics, as long as you're willing to commit to them and do them on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
So strategies first. Certainly in this day and age, the idea of producing educational content and content that builds trust, so that you can be found by the search engines these days, is another big piece of the puzzle. It's gotten much harder to just broadcast out to people, so we have, being found has become an extremely important part of the entire marketing piece. Obviously, a total web presence, even if all you're doing is working in your community, in your 12 square block area, having a total web presence has become extremely important. Lead generation, I'm going through the whole system here, but lead generation is not a one-time event. It's something you commit to and you do consistently, both in 3 ways: advertising, public relations, and a systematic approach to referrals. If you do all of these steps right, leading up to this point, selling becomes a lot easier, because people are actually selling themselves, but you do have to have what we call a lead conversion. 7th piece in it is to live by the calendar. One of the things that happens to a lot of small business owners when we start talking about all of these things that need to be done, and all of these systems that need to be built and to put into place, a lot of times they go into overwhelm, and because it can seem like, gosh, how am I going to get it all done? Obviously, for a lot of small business owners, marketing is their part-time job, because the taking pictures or the making it or fixing it, shipping it, that's the real job, right? But if we can start carving out some part of every day, some part of every week, maybe giving each month a theme, and then managing our marketing as though it's something that we're going to build, say, over a 6-month period or over a year. If anybody listening and plans to be in business at 6 months or a year, that from now,
right,
that's certainly the approach that you have to take.
Now, it's interesting. One of the areas that I know you're big on educational content, and again, in the photo world, that's a really sensitive subject, because, and I'm part of the problem in that there's practicing photographers like me who are also educators, and we write books and we do various things, give workshops and so forth, and that's in a sense educational content, but really that's not what you're describing, because when I'm building my photo business, you're talking about educational content for my target demographic, not just a separate business which is selling to my industry. So
you bet. So,
for example, this
for any business talking, go ahead and give your example. Go ahead.
One thing that this is an aha for me when I was looking at your things, I was thinking, gosh, I do a lot of educational content already, and this is living in a neighborhood of 1,000 affluent families. I'm a portrait photographer, and I thought, why don't I start educating all of these moms with cameras who live in my neighborhood as a lead generator. So what I did was about 3 weeks ago, I announced a little 4-week class, and they came into my home, and we had 25 moms with cameras, or 20 moms and 5 dads, and they're learning like tips and tricks and how to use their camera and how to document their family and how to organize their files, basic things. But what I'm amazed by is they're all wanting to hire me now, and a lot of photographers are so terrified of, gosh, if I give away my secrets, if I give away, whatever, that's somehow going to hurt me. But yet, what I'm noticing, at least in my own experience, is that creating that educational content actually for my exact demographic is actually benefiting my business. But talk a little bit about that, because I'm sure that's not a uncommon lament in any industry. Like, why would I create educational content for my target audience?
Yeah, no, that's a great illustration of a point that I do come across all the time, because I think when we start talking about this idea of telling people how to do things, creating content that's not just selling them something, but actually telling stories and telling about the events that you participated in, and in your case actually teaching them how to do something that seems like you're creating competitors almost.
Right.
I think that it's a great illustration that you should be open to telling all of your secrets, giving it all away, because certainly there are some people out there that Dane, I'm sure have come to yours, that are going to go out now and they'll never hire another photographer again, in their mind at least, because now they're an expert. But I'm sure you've also are finding just what you did experience is that they now came to know you in a way that was, you weren't trying to sell them anything. It was not threatening. They gave, really did understand that you have an expertise. Maybe they saw a deeper insight into your portfolio, and so all of a sudden, as you experienced, you were finding that they, in many cases, now you were even pushing the envelope a little, I think, and actually teaching people how to do what you do. But in many cases, when we're doing this educational content, people don't necessarily want to know how to do it. They want to know darn sure that you know how to do it. And I think that's right. One of the best ways, certainly, to demonstrate that, of course, is just by letting it rip. Letting them understand that here's your experience, and I can't tell you how. I do it every day. If people took my programs and my books and every single word out of it that I give, they'd never need to hire a marketing expert again, theoretically. But lo and behold, we have lots of folks that hire my consultants because they read our 7 steps to small business marketing success and go, gosh, I want you to do that to me.
That's right. Well, it's ironic because, and I do get the concern. I felt it myself. But what I'm noticing is, especially when I'm actually taking the time to educate these folks, the moms with cameras or whatever, it's pretty overwhelming for them. They're both kind of piqued with interest about what could happen, but they also realize pretty quickly, once I show what I do, that they're kind of enamored with it. They want to learn it, but they also, like you say, they recognize their amateur status relative to what's required to do this work well. And I would suspect with marketing, there's no question. A quick Google search just a moment ago got me that PDF that you publish online for free. That really kind of outlines your whole book. It's an excerpt from your book, and people are going to read it, and then if they're smart, they're going to go get the book and learn more. And if they're really committed and want to expedite their process, I have a hunch they'll call your business and contract with you, which is what I've experienced both with Fast Track, with photographers, as well as with clients. But there is this fear of I'm going to get overwhelmed. And it's funny. I'm curious what you think about this. I actually went ahead and charged the moms that came in to my house. I actually charged them a very small amount, but I wanted to create enough value. I think it was like $75 a person or something. But I wanted to create enough value so that they held it differently than if it was just a freebie, kind of a come if you want to optional thing. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, I think that can be a very good. There are many times where that sort of, at least let them put a little skin in the game, let them be committed. It's so easy to sign up for something that's free. So actually, even if you limit your sign up because somebody says, oh, I don't know if I can make that, or I don't know if $50 or $75 is worth it, so they're not going to jump in necessarily. But the people that do will probably be the people that you're after, and they'll be more committed. Particularly if you're trying to help them get results, you're going to give them some homework, and so they may be more committed to doing that. I want to touch on a couple of things you said though. That idea of teaching. One of the things that I think it's a great idea to continue that education with your existing clients, because in many cases we get them results in our businesses, and we never go back and review. Did they get the value? Did they truly realize the results? Do they understand how much it actually takes to get them that result? I think for a lot of photographers, I mean that is one of the challenges, certainly, right? I mean, I can go down to Walmart and buy a $3,000 camera and call myself a photographer. At least that is the perception, right?
Right.
And I think that by spending time to actually show people, I'm not saying that you're showing them it's complicated, but necessarily show people that there is more to it than pointing and shooting, then I think you actually run, or you run some chance at least of demonstrating, why you charge a premium for what you do. I think the other side of this conversation about content too is that and I'm sure you've found this in doing it yourself, that producing content is really what opens the door for people to find you, because the search engines want to give people content they're looking for, and consequently, everybody is now become accustomed to finding anything they want now online about any person or challenge or product or brand that they're looking for. And so actually, if they don't find that, I mean, I'm actually just making a case for volume almost at this point. If they don't find a lot about you that's beyond your website, it actually is a bit of a trust eroder. I know that anytime, I mean, even if somebody says, oh, you've got to call this guy Dane, he's the greatest in the world, he did Susie's wedding, you just have to call him. Well, what do you think they do? You think they call Dane? No, first thing they do is they type Dane Sanders into a search engine and see what they find. I mean, even if they got this incredible recommendation from a friend. So you've got to pass that sort of content test as well.
That's right. It's funny. There's so much that's coming up for me in this conversation. This is just rich. And we've talked a lot about creating content. And I hear this phrase all the time. In fact, we had CC Chapman on the show a couple weeks ago, and he wrote a book called of course, he's a friend, and I'm blanking. Yeah, thank you, Content Rules. And he talks a lot about content being king. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on content versus context, because it seems like Seth Godin has often said things like, if you create scarcity, you create value. If you create value, you get customers. And it seems like this idea of scarcity, when content is everywhere, when you can do a Google search and pretty much get any content for free, it seems like the context within which that content is delivered seems to become more and more important. Would you agree with that, or am I off base in that thinking?
Yeah, and I would, in the referral engine, I write about the 4 C's. Content is one, context is definitely one, community is another, and I think that's, that idea of context and community really go together very well. So while people can and do find free, and many times that's the door opener, it's the thing that gets passed around, it's the thing that can be shared, as you just did here, very easily. So then the question is, how do you actually move those people into feeling that they want more, into building trust, and that's this idea of context. I think really happens. I'll give you a great example. I've done a weekly podcast for at least 6 or 7 years, and that is free. You can go get it. It's weekly on my blog. You can subscribe to it by iTunes and just have it sucked into whatever your device is that you want to have it play on. But about 2 years ago, somebody approached me and said, hey, we want to turn your podcast into an app. It's no charge to you. We'll just do it. We want to put it out there. So obviously, I was like, sure. I need to have an app, don't I? Everybody does. doesn't. So I did that, and granted, it has some extra features and some extra bells and whistles and archives things a little better than iTunes does. But it also cost $2.99, and I was blown away by the amount of people that, given the choice between the free one and the app, they choose the app. And you know, $2.99 is not a whole lot for context in which they wanted to receive this information. That was the device they wanted to use. That was how they wanted it packaged. And I think that is probably a really important illustration of this idea of context.
Well, and also increased value. Like, I think it's funny. Really, it sounds like we're in the commodity of trust, because this notion of what do I trust and what are the metrics that are going to indicate for me that I should trust something or another. It could be someone endorsing something. It could be a price point. If there's so many unconscious indicators I'm looking for to tell me whether or not something is trustworthy. If I buy it at one store versus another, is this person associated with that person? I mean, without question, my own credibility has increased over the years with some not everyone. Plenty of people don't like me, but the folks that do, oftentimes I think they're associating me with folks like you. There's a credibility factor that goes on with guys like when John Jantsch comes on the show. That adds a lot of value to the things that I'm having to say, because I've curated who I want to have on the show, and I think this guy's valuable. And when you show up and present, it adds huge value. So for the folks who are listening, what can they be doing? Like, again, they're Middle America photographer, they're East Coast, West Coast, wherever they're at. Maybe they're in a smaller environment. Given what you know now, if you were to start out as a photographer, but you also have this kind of deep entrenched, decades of marketing experience, but you don't have you don't have your app, and you don't have your shows, and you don't have, you're really starting over, but with a knowledge base that's pretty significant, and you wanted to leverage that brain trust, what would you be doing right out of the gate? What would be the first set of things you'd be doing?
Well,
and don't worry about the phone.
It's in the other office. Fortunately, somebody's getting it.
Great.
The first thing, I guess there would be two things. I would certainly start writing content. I would start blogging. I just think that's a no-brainer for anybody, because it's just a really dead simple way to start producing this body of work that is going to serve you forever, but certainly in your initial SEO needs. But I think the other thing that I would do, and particularly since most photographers, most small businesses, quite frankly, are community-based local businesses. And I think the real untapped play, particularly if I were just getting started, would be to go out and start recruiting what I call strategic partners. And these are other non-competing businesses that have your same ideal target client in mind. And I would go out and I would build a network of those folks, my whole team, so that when a client came to me and said, gosh, this is, I always like to use the wedding example because I just went through one of these myself, and with one of my oldest daughter, and that's one of the greatest sort of chain of connected businesses, that supply the wedding, the florist and the cake and the dress and the invitations and the photographer. I mean, it's like all these parts come together to manufacture this event, and they're all related. And so I think that's a great example of assembling, say, your wedding team, if you were a photographer, so that if somebody came to you and said, gosh, you know what, we really trust your advice, Dane. You've told us some good things about do you know a good florist that you would be able to say,
right.
Yep, got it right here, plug it in, and that you would actually have your team. And I've used the wedding example, but this example or this idea works for any business. I don't care what industry you're in. Is if you I can be seen as the go-to person for everything my client needs, even if it's unrelated to my business. Two things happen. You dramatically increase the value that you bring to any relationship, any client relationship, but you also start planting the seeds for referral opportunities, so that florist that I mentioned is also going to reciprocate and think in terms of, when they get asked, do you know a photographer? And you can take this. You can take this to great heights, quite frankly. In fact, I tell people to go out and recruit this team, and start and put a camera in front of them, start interviewing them, do a walk through their flower shop, and put that on your website. Create an entire weddings in my town blog, and start having all of those people on your team to contribute to that blog. Anybody who takes that one single idea to heart and does it, I guarantee you will dominate in the search results for people that are looking for those types of services. So really create this formal team. Don't make it about you give me two, I'll give you two. Just make it about how can I create opportunities? How can I help serve my clients with this team? And you may not actually have to lead generate ever again.
Well, it's funny. A lot of what you're saying I think has a deep resonance with photographers, especially if they shoot weddings, because I think a lot of folks understand the critical nature of that. And of course, there's folks who try to game that system, and they try to get referrals, or not referrals, but kickbacks and so forth. But the wedding industry, I think it's really a perfect example of what you're describing. But I also think, and I'd love to hear what you think about this, for folks that don't have an event-based, where everyone's focused on one thing, but they want to do this, say, with portrait photography, or it seems like there's a mindset that this can be applied in any context. It's funny you say this, because I actually started a video show called Make Your Day You, which is exactly what you're describing. And it was really helpful in opening doors. But as I was moving out of weddings and more into portraiture, I'm realizing, well, the same principles are true. I just need to be thinking with a new lens, and it's not quite as low-hanging fruit as with weddings, but it needs to be done. So what can you give us one more example? And it really can be any industry where people are intentionally budgeting time and resource to build that kind of a network in something besides weddings, so people can even extend their thinking.
Sure. Well, one where I've done this numerous times is in any home services businesses. So you've got the plumber and the heating and air and the lawn service and the fence person, maybe even the remodeling contractor or the window cleaning service, where you actually form this team that I own a home that was built in the 20s. I mean, so we not only have they have to be people that are about have been around for 50 years or something. I mean, they have to realize that these houses were built completely different than the stuff they're throwing up in the suburbs right now. And so when you find somebody who gets that, knows how to work on a boiler, knows how to do plaster, when you find some of those people, you really hold on to them, and you really trust them, and you get very. I mean, at least in our case, we're asking them, do you know anybody who does this all the time? And certainly from my marketing standpoint, I've built several pretty large networks of folks that actually went out. They actually went out and marketed for each other. So it was beyond the, hey, we'll send you a referral. It was, hey, Mrs. Smith, here's the invoice for today, and by the way, because you're such a great customer, we have a 25% off coupon to have your boiler checked out by a really good trusted resource of ours. And that again, that one again is another very natural one. But I would tell people listening that quite frankly, anyone who has your shared kind of ideal client is a target. I mean, even in the portrait business, I mean, you could start, you could certainly start. I mean, these are individuals that have lots of needs in lots of ways. I mean, you could tell them about a good accountant if the need arose. So I mean, we could. There's really, I mean, you're limited only by your creativity in this, I think.
I totally agree. Now, it's interesting. There's a lot of new photographers. I'm pressing the limits on our time, and I hope that's okay. But there's one question that came up from my friend Christine D'Alessio that I really am intrigued by. And this is especially poignant for people who are newer to the industry, where maybe, like in your context of the older home and the plaster and the boiler and all that stuff, maybe there is an established go-to person in your town for that area. And meanwhile, there's a flood of new people who are like, you know what, I have more umption and chutzpah, and I'm interested in breaking into that market and taking some ground. And so this could, I have a hunch this could be applied in a lot of directions, but I network, but this is Christine asked the question, I network, but many have their go-to shooters already. How do you break into these groups? And I'd love to hear what you have to say about this.
Well, one of the things that and again, I'm not necessarily. I mean, this is a break into strategy only. This is not a
photo-centric run.
Well, I was going to say it's also not a it's one tactic to take when you're trying to break in, whether you bring in a new town or you're trying to break into, say, an association that you want to do work with, that you actually find an influential person in that community you're trying to break into, and go to them with the idea of, hey, we know you have your go-to people. We want to show you how we're different, and so. And hopefully you have a way that you're different and that you provide a great experience. And you go to those folks and say, we want to make you an offer for your next event, for your next marketing need, whatever it is. We want to come in. We're going to show you how incredible we are. And by the way, we're going to do the work for you for free. That one project for free. And here's the deal we want to make with you. We know you're going to be so thrilled that we're going to do this work. We're going to give it our all. And all you have to agree to is that if we do thrill you, if you do think our work is incredible and the experience was different, that you pledge to introduce us to your circle of influence.
Mm-hmm. That is so valuable.
Countless times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
the deal is you've got to make the deal. You know what I mean? You've got to say, here's what we'll do. Right. Here's what you'll do, and obviously thrill them, but don't just do it and then say, gosh, I hope you liked it.
Yeah. I love what you're saying, because so many photographers. I'm sorry to cut you off, John. So many photographers, they're at least for me, I'm projecting onto them at this point, but that extra couple inches of, okay, I have an idea, but I need to actually initiate and create an opportunity or a deal or a consideration and make the pitch, I think is something that a lot of folks resist, but the ones who do seem to get a lot of benefit. I was in a meeting this morning with a photographer I'm doing some consulting with, and she happens to be a registered nurse, and she happens to love birth photography, and but she had in my mind, she has this incredible niche opportunity, but she's been hesitant. So I've known her for a long time, and I didn't know she was an RN, and I was encouraging her to leverage that unique position she had to create networks and relationships that would put her in an amazing authoritative position that no one else could hold a candle to, because there's just so few people that have both a history with actually being an added medical professional in the room when you're also taking pictures of that moment. And it was like the light went on, and she went, "Oh, really? You think that would be significant, that I would differentiate that way?" And then, but it is that couple extra more inches to then say, but none of that means anything until you start letting people know that that's what you're going to bring to the table, and you're inviting them to bring something to the table so you can create something valuable together. And I wish that there'd be more creativity around that effort, at least as much as we put towards what we make with photographs. So,
I think you bring up a great point about strategy in general. I think a lot of times when I've helped somebody uncover a strategy, a clear differentiator, in many cases the reason they haven't uncovered it themselves and don't use it themselves is because they underestimate the value of it, or they just think, well, doesn't everybody do it that way? And so I think a lot of times, in fact, what I would tell people that are, if they're listening today and they're kind of saying, well, gosh, okay, I get this idea of a differentiator, but I don't know what I do that's different. How do I talk to 8 or 9 of your, what you would call your best clients, and ask them, and don't let them say, well, you just provide good service or you take good good pictures. Ask them what good service looks like. A time when you provided good service, why you thought the experience with you was better. I mean, ask them some of those things, and you're going to start hearing what I think might be the seed of what you really do that is truly unique, and you probably should be communicating it in everything that you talk about.
Well, John, thank you again for being on. This is rich and value, and I know both for folks who are watching it live and those who are watching on the replay, if they want to go deeper with this conversation, one way to go is to go pick up a copy of Duct Tape Marketing. It's a great way to kind of start in the conversation. Another is the referral engine, which mine's on my Kindle, and I asked John if you'd hold yours up, if you'd hold up a copy so people can see it.
We've got a couple of them around here too, so there you go.
All right, so there's the referral engine. And I know referrals is a big deal in our industry, and I strongly encourage both. Also, ducttapemarketing.com is a fantastic resource in general, and following at ducttape on Twitter. If this is valuable to you in any way, John is not being compensated for being on the show. Please reach out and tell folks this was valuable. Say thanks to him online, and John, just as a personal thanks, just what you've done for our industry, photography, but way beyond that for marketing in general over all these years. I don't think you can hear enough thanks for what you've done. So I really appreciate it, and for you being on.
Thanks very much, Dane. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, and I might even, now that I've flattered you left and right, I might even invite you back on the show again. So hopefully get you in a vulnerable moment. We'll get you back.
Happy to do it. I love hearing from all of the photographer and creative types out there. I love working with them.
All right. Well, thanks, John, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Next week, for those of you guys who don't know, is Ann Handley from Marketing Profs. She'll be on the show, and then the following is Julien Smith from Trust Agents. It's an amazing number of weeks, and I hope you'll join us next Tuesday. So take care, God bless, and thanks again, John.